Today we're going to go over the tile top table project. This is a great project. A lot of my students really enjoy building it. A lot of times when I run into a student later on in life, they'll tell me that they still have this table and how much fun they had. They remember building it, and it's a great project for you learn a lot of skills that will help you with your next project. And it's also a couple kids have made some money on them. They've sold them, made a couple dollars on them, which is kind of fun. And it fits in a lot of different houses. You can kind of custom make the table on the top. Anyway, we're going to start off. This table can be broken into sections. We have the top, and then we have the base, and then kind of the bottom shelf. So I want to go through building just the base part today, the frames. So if you look at this, we basically have 4 frames that make this up. And the frames kind of are broken into some sections, and one section that we have here is our rails. Our rails go horizontal, and it basically has 2 rails on each frame. So we have a rail that goes horizontal here and a rail that goes horizontal here. The next component we have is stiles, and the stiles go vertical. And you'll notice that some stiles are wider than others. So this stile is 2 inches wide, whereas this stile is only 1.5 inches wide. And if you look kind of close, you'll be able to see basically what happens is we want this to look 2 inches. So we have this stile that's 1.25 inches, and then we have this connected to the thickness of this board, which is 3/4, and then that works out. So here's our 2-inch wide stile, and that connects to this one right here to try to work this out. All right, so we're going to walk through those steps. Okay, we're not actually building a cabinet, we're building a table, but we're building it somewhat similar to a cabinet. We're going to make 4 face frames. The face frames offer diagonal strength, they're basic structure of a cabinet, and they offer a location to mount our doors. They also give a location to mount drawers as well. A cabinet with a face frame is going to be much stronger than a cabinet without a face frame. So a lot of the higher end furniture will always have a face frame. So we're going to start to design these face frames. Okay, now it's time for us to take a closer look at the stiles and rails on the frames. Our goal is to build 4 frames. We're going to build 2 of each style. So this frame on the right, let's take a closer look at it. The rails are all 9.5 inches long by 2 inches wide. The stiles are all 2 inches wide by 20 inches long. Now on the frame on the left here, the rails are exactly the same. The rails are all 2 inches wide by 9.5 inches long, but these stiles are narrower. They're only 1.25 inches wide by 20 inches long. Okay, here's your part list. We're looking to get 4 stiles, 2 inches wide by 20 inches long. Then another 4 stiles, 20 inches long by 1.25 inches wide. Then we're trying to get 8 rails, 9.5 inches long by 2 inches wide. This is the order I'd like you to try to find these pieces, because the smaller rails are going to be easier to find because they're only 9.5 inches long, whereas the longer stiles at 20 inches long are going to be harder to find because it's a longer board that is 2 inches wide. Okay, now we're trying to find some boards that are going to work good for this assignment. So looking at this board here, it's a little over 4 inches wide. So this would work really good for our 2-inch stiles. So we got a 2-inch stile here and a 2-inch stile here. If I add 2 inches to 1.25 inches, it's going to be a little bit wasteful. So this board will work best for one set of stiles that are 2 inches wide, but probably not as good for the 1.25 inch stiles. So take a minute and try to find some boards that work out good with multiples of 1.25 inches and 2 inches. So an example of that might be a board that's approximately 3.5 inches wide would be a pretty good board. Maybe even a little bit wider than that because we have the kerf. The saw kerf's going to waste some wood. Don't forget about that. Okay, now I'm going to joint the edge of the board. If you are a middle school student, this part might be done for you. When I get ready to join, I have to make sure that all my safety tests have been passed with 100%. I feel comfortable with the machine. If it's your first time using the machine, make sure you come find me so I can watch you, make sure you're doing everything right. This operation is going to require 2 push sticks because the level of my board, the width, is below the level of my fence a little bit. So I'm going to pull the board back a little, start up the machine. It's looking pretty good except for right down here. I have one bad spot I have to go through. Alright, now we're going to rip the stiles and rails to width on the table saw. If you haven't passed the table saw safety test with 100%, please do so. Get me to watch you use it the first couple times. If you're in middle school, this step will probably be done for you already. So we're going to put our best edge up against the fence, the rip fence here, and we're going to cut a 2-inch wide piece and then an 1.25 inch wide piece. These pieces for the stiles and rails, one of the first things I'm going to do is use my square to mark off the ends, because I don't want to use the ends. See, you can tell almost probably from that distance how bad this end is. So I'm going to want to cut that end right off. So once I get that end marked off, I'm going to evaluate the wood. I have a knot right here, but it doesn't go all the way through. So I think that board's probably going to be a pretty good piece. So I'm going to measure out at 20 inches. I'll put my little V, and I'm going to make another little mark right across. Alright, so now I'm just going to calculate the saw blade. The saw blade's about 1/8 of an inch. So all I have to do is put a double line here. That's just enough room for that saw blade to cut right through there without making any mistakes. Now I'm going to go over here to 20 inches again. So these are my stiles, my 2-inch wide stiles. Alright, now this piece is pretty rough. I got a knot here and a knot here. I'm probably going to get rid of that little section. And I'm going to skip over to here. So this piece, I'm going to try to get another stile out of it. And it looks like I'm going to be able to, so I can mark it over here at 20 inches again. Make a little mark. Alright, so that's the best I'm going to be able to do with this board. I have one stile here, one stile here, and one stile here. So I'm going to put X's on the side that I want the saw blade to be on when I make my cut. Because if I put the saw blade on the wrong spot, it's going to make a mistake for me. I'll be too small. So I have my X here, my X right in the middle here. I have my X here on the waist side, my X here on the waist side, and then my X at the end. So that's about the best I'm going to do on that board. So I need one more stile now. So now I can take this next board, mark off my end again. You kind of see it's all chipped, it's in pretty bad shape. So here is my next stile out here at 20 inches. And now I'm done with my 2-inch wide stiles. So at this point, I could, I would be nice if I could just give this board to somebody else and look for some shorter boards for my 9.5 inch pieces. But if I can't find any shorter boards, now I would start my 9.5 inch pieces. So this would be for my 2-inch wide rails. So I mark it off at 9.5. Make a mark. And my saw kerf right there, another 9.5. If you wanted, you could even go cut one of these and then use it as a pattern as well. So you could just go cut one of your 9.5 inch pieces, use it as a pattern for your next one. Okay, so here's my next 9.5. So I need 8 of these, so I'm going to need quite a few of these. So when I get all these marked off, then I Okay, now we're on to the smaller rails, and for this operation I'm going to be using the clamp because the board's only 9.5 inches long, where our safety rule is 12 inches. So I have to make sure I use the clamp on this one. Okay, so now I have all the parts for my frames. I have my 2-inch wide by 20-inch long Stiles. I have 4 of those. 4 of my 1.25 by 20-inch long Stiles. And then I have my 8 rails, 9.5 by 2. These are ready to go. So now I can stack all my pieces up and see how they're doing. Hopefully I have them pretty much the same length. If I'm off by, a 16th or a 32nd, that's fine. If I'm off by an 1/8 inch or more, I probably just need to retrim them. Find my shortest piece, and then I might have to cut quite a few down to that size. If I want to sand them a little bit, I could use the disc sander over here. Make sure you know the safety rules on the disc sander. Make sure you're using the miter gauge on the disc sander, but I could sand those. This would probably be one of the best ways to sand these. The other tool I could use to sand them is the edge sander. If I use the edge sander though, I have to make sure I use the fence over here, and then I can just lightly sand it right here. When I sand, I'm just going to push and then stop, push and then stop. I don't want to burn the end, and I certainly don't want to put it right out here in the middle because it's going to take away my 90 degrees. Some of my students spend way too much time sanding these parts. You're just trying to get them, it's almost best just to recut them on the miter box, like I said, if you're off quite a bit. Otherwise, if you're within a 16th, you're going to be okay for this. Okay, at this stage, there's 2 different things I could do. I could cut my tapers on the bandsaw, or I could drill the pocket holes for my rails. So I'm going to show you this part first. So if you look at this machine, right here is the center mark where it's going to drill the hole. I'll try to get you a little closer so you can see this. And basically what we're trying to do is line the center of the board up with this line. Alright, so you can kind of figure you're going to need to make a mark in here a ways. So if this is my board, it should be 2 inches wide, and this will be a real easy measurement. The center is just 1 inch, so I make my mark, and then I can line it up with this line here. In order to get this to raise up, you have to turn the machine on. Okay, I'm going to put it right to the back, right up against the fence here. And this is really important. We have a foot pedal for this machine. It says tap and release. So you're just going to tap it one time and then release it. So here we go. I'm going to hold on to the parts, tap and release. Alright, and I can spin it around. I'm just trying to find the center, tap and release. And it's going to put the pocket holes on the back side. So I need to do that to all my parts. It's really important that I don't accidentally flip the piece over because you'll have one pocket hole on one side and one on the other. So I'm going to put this back in here. I'm going to let you watch my foot this time. The tap and release part is pretty important. So I'm just going to hold the part, tap and release. I don't step on it and hold it there because then we'll break the bit. So it's a tap and release. Okay, the bits for this machine are really expensive. So I really don't want to see anybody, just drilling random holes on a board because it wrecks the board and it's a waste of this nice machine that we have. So please treat it with care when you're done with it. Make sure you actually turn the power switch off because it gets kind of loud in here, and before you know it, it'll run for 20 minutes without anybody realizing it's on. Okay, our next step is going to be to mark off the measurements for the tapers. So if my board's at 2 inches wide, I'm going to mark off right at 1 inch, right in the middle. And then I'm going to go up 2 inches on the side. Okay, so I'm starting at that corner, going up 2 inches and over 1 inch, and then I'm just going to connect the dots. Okay, when I connect them, I'm going to connect them right at the edge of the board. So I'm going over 1 inch, up 2 is what my goal was. Over 1 inch and then up 2. So I'm going to do that again on this piece. Okay, I'm going to go up 2 inches, make a mark. Over 1 inch, make a mark. And then I'm connecting my line. So there won't be a lot left on the narrower style. So there's just a little bit there at the bottom that will be left. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. You know, up 2 inches, over 1 inch, and then we're going to connect them across the top edge here, over 1 inch, up 2 inches, connect them across the top. All right, here we are at the bandsaw to cut the tapers. The bandsaw is really the safest way to cut these tapers. I'll make sure you've passed the bandsaw safety test with 100%. I've watched you use it. Right now the blade guide is too high, so make sure you adjust that depending on the thickness of your board. So it needs to be just a little bit above the board, about 1/8 of an inch or less. So I can use this line. The table is a little bit of a guide. I'm basically just trying to go in the same direction as that line. Sometimes I get students that will go at all these crazy angles. Just try to keep it in line with your line. Turn on the bandsaw. My hands are way back. Alright, so here's my, see, I saved a little bit of the line. Don't worry about that scrap piece, okay? Not a big deal. It will find its way out of your way. There's my next one. Okay, I'm just saving the line. Trying to save the line. Going pretty slow. Taking my time. Nobody's standing next to me. I have lots of space. Alright, now I'm going to sand my tapers up to the line over here at the edge sander. It's really important that I don't go this direction because that can kick and go sideways. So I'll have to flip the board over. Now that might mean some of you, your lines might be on the wrong side like this one. So you might have to transfer the line. Okay, or you just kind of keep looking at it. So I kind of see how I'm doing. Okay, I can kind of watch it, but if I go this way, it can kick. So I got to make sure I keep going this direction. I can put it right up against the fence, that'd be fine. You could also use a disc sander to sand these. You notice that I've removed the miter gauge for this. Okay. Okay, let's sand right up to my line. I'm going to assemble my parts. This is a part I usually like to do on the end of a table, and I kind of line it up on the end. I always start at the top of my frame, so this will be you know, the top. You put together this section first. So I went and got a driver bit. This is a 6-inch square driver bit. I got it out of the red tool cabinet. To put it in the drill, you just put one hand on the bottom, one hand on the top of this key chuck, and you tighten it up. I'm going to need some clamps for this. This is probably one of the easiest ways. You just put this clamp right on the joint, and if you're finding problems with that, you could maybe use a couple of these clamps. One could go on this side, What you don't want is a clamp in the way of your drill, because your drill has to be at about this angle. If my drill's up like this, I'm going to go right through the board. If it's way down like this, it's not really going to go in. So I'm going to bring the camera over here so you can kind of see that angle one more time, because this is pretty important. So the angle should kind of match the angle of the hole, like this. Now I'm going to use 1¼ inch fine screws. So they're 1¼ inch in length and the threads are fine. It depends on what kind of wood you're using. You might need some coarse screws. I'm going to push pretty hard on the back of the drill, but I'm going to go pretty slow on the trigger. So if I move you in just a little bit more, you'll kind of see a little more detail here. If I put my hand over here, I want to be careful because I don't want to slip and gouge my hand. But I could put my hand over here on the clamp and it would probably be pretty safe. So I'm going to go nice and slow, ease my way in, and I just go until it's tight and then I stop. Okay, so there's my first joint on this. So now I'm going to move on to the second one. So this one's going to go over here. I'm going to grab another corner. I'm looking for the best side now. And I'm going to put the best side of my board down. Alright, so I'm going to walk over here to this side and clamp this in place, trying to get it flush at the top here. Alright. I'm going to screw this piece in. Put my hand on the clamp, going nice and slow. Alright, now it's time to put this connector in. Now this one might not fit in there perfectly. You might have to stretch this out just a little bit to get this to fit in. Now at this point, what's probably the most important is that my measurements are the same. So I can take this and I can measure from here to here, and I'd like these two measurements to be the same on each side. So once again, when I get ready to assemble this corner, I'm going to use the clamp again. Okay, I'm trying to move it right to my pencil mark, where my 2-inch mark was. Okay, I'm going to put my screw in again. Alright, now I'm going to move down here. Before I put this, I'm going to kind of move it down where I think it needs to be. But before I tighten it, I'm going to check my measurement here, because I want this measurement to be the same. So I have 13 and about 7/8 here, 13 and 15/16 here. So I need to move this down about a 1/16. Okay, so I got that about where I want it now. Put my screw in. Okay, I'm standing off to the side, so if I slip, I might have to clamp just a little. No, it's going to work. And pull. Sometimes there'll be a little gap that'll pull tighter at the end. And here is one of my frames. So I have one of these done. I need to do a couple more of these, and then I will be ready for some assembly. Now it's time to glue up the frames. The 4 frames, once they're done, you're going to look them over. You want to make sure all the screw holes are on the same side. You don't want some screw holes on one side and some on the other. You want to make sure all the joints are tight. If they're not tight, come and get me. I'll try to help you out a little bit with that. We want to make sure all of them are on the same they're all flush with each other. So checking these out, these should be all pretty flush. Otherwise, now's the best time to fix anything, because once you glue this thing up, it's going to be a lot harder to fix your mistakes. To glue this up, you're really going to want one person to help you. Remember, this is a very important step. If you do a really good job on this step, it's going to save you a lot of time later with sanding, and your project's going to turn out a lot better if you take this step seriously. So I got around 8 clamps. I got 4 clamps like these. These are the hand turn clamps. To use these, you just twist them together. You make them parallel first, so you might just twist one of these to make them parallel, and then you can move the jaws back and forth this way. I also got 4 of the red clamps. These are a lot easier to use. A lot of people find they are, but you're just going to move this button, and you'll tighten it up with this one at the end. So, getting ready to glue this up. Now, I'm going to start with just one corner. And I always build the table upside down. So when I get ready to glue this up, everything's going to be upside down. Okay, you don't want to get this glue on your clothes. If you do get on your clothes, just make sure you wipe it off in about 10 minutes. Don't stop your project to go wash your hands, okay, because then the glue skins over and it just doesn't turn out as good. Complete the whole thing and then go get cleaned up. So I'm going to take my glue, I'm just going to spread this on the skinnier rails. So this is my 1¼ rail, that's where I just spread the glue. Now I'm going to make sure all my screw holes are on the inside, and then I'm going to carefully attach these together. And my goal right now is just to put one clamp right in the middle. Okay, so I'm just going to put one clamp right in the middle of my frame, just to kind of hold this together enough to where I can move on to my other side. So now I'm going to go over here to the direct opposite side, and my goal here is just to put another little line of glue on the edge of the skinny stile. So this is my 1¼ stile. Okay, my screw holes, I'm making sure the screw holes are on the inside. Position these together. Now I have to think about what I'm trying to do here. A lot of my students clamp these the wrong way. Okay, they'll put the clamp this way, and that's really not helping you out at all. You want to put the clamp this way. You're trying to clamp together the two parts you're gluing. It sounds common sense, but I have a lot of students that do this step incorrectly, and then their table doesn't turn out as good because of it. So now I just have 2 more edges to glue, and I can just hold this vertical to do this. So I have one edge here, one edge here. I'm going to take this last frame, make sure that the screw holes that go on the inside. Open this clamp up a little bit. Put one clamp here. I'm going to push down and try to make sure it's flush on the top. I'm going to grab my other clamp. Okay, looking pretty good. Now I'm just going to put some of these red clamps on the top. So same thing, I'm making sure I'm going the right direction with them. Lay them down on the top. Tighten it up. If your clamp isn't working, just tap it on the ground. Tap it on the metal side though, not the plastic side. Okay, now I'm going to flip this over. Now once in a while a clamp will fall off. It's not a big deal. You just kind of put it back on. Alright. I have 2 more to put. I try to put them on the same side so they take up less space. Alright, just one more clamp to go. Now at this point, if you walk away, you'll probably be bummed out the next day. I'm not a big fan of sanding. I don't really like to sand. It takes forever. Okay? But this glue is going to be pretty hard to sand off if I leave it like this. So now this is where you grab a scrap piece of wood and try to scrape some of that glue off. Or some paper towel, try to clean some of that glue off, and that will save you a lot of time for the next step.